I can speak about racism because I'm Mexican American. I've been called a beaner. I've been called a wetback. I've been discriminated against because of my race. Hey guys, I'm Joel and thank you for tuning in. So today I'm going to react to a video by the Jubilee channel. I'll link the entire video down below so you can check it out if you want to. I'm just going to basically show you certain points that people make and then, have my humble opinion on what they're saying. Now, before anyone loses their mind here, the video is African American or black people. I can speak about racism because I'm Mexican American. I've been called a beaner. I've been called a wetback. I've been discriminated against because of my race. Not that in the United States you need permission to speak your mind, but in today's environment, oh no, he said those words. Now, listen, I can say them because I'm Mexican. Just like black people can say the N-word, I can say beaner and wetback, okay? There's my justification. Not that I should need it, but anyway. All right, let's get into it.
Me coming from Africa, I came here to better my life. And I feel like personally, we need to stop using the word racism when we don't get something or when something don't go our way. And just
let me jump in real quick. No disrespect, but racism exists and I have to acknowledge it. And I can't just ignore it. But what I can do is not buy into the system.
Okay, first. Yes, of course, racism exists. I've had it happen to me. But that doesn't mean you have to go around living as if it's constantly pressing you or holding you back. I think if we go to a more micro level and deal with things like that when they actually happen to us, we can go much further than accusing society at large of being racist, because that's just not the case. Okay. If you don't watch these videos, by the way, you should. They're pretty good. They're interesting.
If you agree. Slavery affected my family.
Yeah, I mean, that's just evident in my last name, King. I mean, that's the brand of the slave owner that put that name on my family all those years ago, and I'm still wearing it.
My last name is Ley, L-E-Y, but I don't really know if that's my last name because my great-grandfather, actually great-great-grandfather, immigrated from China to Mexico, escaping communism. And when he showed up at the port or wherever, immigration said, "What's your name?" The immigration agent couldn't pronounce the name, so he just said Ley. Someone once mentioned to me that Ley, Lai, and Lee were actually the same last name, but it just depended on how the immigration officer heard it when the person said it. And this was in Mexico, not in the US. So, and then also, dude, change your name. You can do that. Give yourself your own name. Okay.
The compounded, economic disparity, social disparity, mental trauma, all of that. I mean, it's tethered forever.
Mental trauma, really?
So to go back to slavery and talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, it has never stopped. So there is no post. What my great-grandparents were teaching my grandparents, who taught my mother, who taught me, came from what they learned through slavery. So there's a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, a fear of society, a fear of law enforcement. So slavery has made a major impact where the low self-esteem.
It's a cultural thing, because if my great-grandfather had taught his kids that they were oppressed, that they had to flee their country, and that they came into a new country and they assigned them a different name, and oh no, I'm an immigrant, poor me, and we pass that on from generation to generation, then yeah, maybe I'd be like them. We have to put race aside. Yes, it's a part of our lives, it's a part of our society, but the more we keep it in the limelight, the more it'll affect us. And I say us on an individual basis, because all those things that you're carrying around affect you more than anyone else. So, we got to get that weight off of us and be able to focus on moving forward. You can do that in this country. People are not going to hold you back because of your race. And the system is not holding you back because of your race either. Okay.
It's very saddening when you can literally only go back a couple generations and then it's like the documents just don't exist. There's no record. It's like, my family has completely been erased. In that same point too, when the time.
As I mentioned, my great-grandfather immigrated from China, so I could go back 2-3 generations and that's it. There are no more documents. I don't know my origins. And yeah, sometimes I think about it and I say, oh man, it'd be nice to be able to fill out my family tree, know where I come from, but I can't. because unfortunately, it doesn't exist. And my family has tried finding documents so we can kind of retrace our heritage, but we haven't been able to. And yeah, I mean, obviously it sucks, but we leave it at that and we move on with our lives, trying to better ourselves and the world around us every day.
Slavery didn't affect my family, but we did suffer a different type of slavery back home. Like we went through colonization. Like I am Bamileke. There was a massacre of Bamileke. You guys can like look it up. They killed like more than 300,000 of my people because we didn't want to assimilate to the French culture. But it's still nothing compared to what you guys' ancestor like been through, you know?
I wouldn't want to minimize that pain, though. What you just said hurt me. That 300,000 people were killed because they would not conform to the colonization of the French people. So that is just as painful and hurtful as the trauma that we suffered here in America.
I can't share the same experience that you have went through and your family, even though we also had our own type of slavery. We had apartheid at the time, you know, where the Dutch people took over and they wanted to just have South Africa, Namibia, and I think other countries where we could only just speak Dutch. It's somehow still happening even now. There's like a place in South Africa where it's called Orania, you know, and it's just Dutch people there. No black person is even allowed there. So we still somehow feel that oppression even now, but it's nothing compared to what your ancestral history, you know, has gone through. I'm somehow happy that you guys have forgiven it, even though you haven't forgotten it. Have you forgiven it? Like your face, like.
Do that, but me personally, no, I haven't. But I want to work through the change. But no, I have not forgiven because it's a system that's still going on.
Bad things happen to people everywhere, to all races. I mentioned in a video in the past, it's not about race, it's about class. Because who were the people that were rounding up the Africans to sell them as slaves to the Europeans? It was other Africans who wanted the money and were enslaving and oppressing people who were at a lower economic level. And also, you got to let things go, man. In order for you to heal, you have to let things go. If you live in the past, you're going to be ruled by the past and you're not going to be able to move forward. Now he says, oh, it's still going on. Really? Really, do you think 100 years ago you could have had the life you have now? I mean, obviously I don't know the man, but by the way he's dressed, the way he speaks, I think he's had an okay life at least. Something that maybe his ancestors 100 years ago would have dreamt of having. I wonder if these people's ancestors came back, they'd probably give him a swift kick in the butt and they say, get with it, man. Look at all you have. Or if these people could go back in time to where it was and then come back, they'd see how good they actually have it and how much progress we've made as a society.
Racism is the main cause of poverty among black people in America.
Racism is a very big issue that talking about it.
See, real quick, I bet you that other gentleman didn't sit down because he probably doesn't live in poverty.
They will always like pick people that are not black over people that are black.
And also,
Are you kidding? Come on. In today's America, with affirmative action, with all that's going on, they actually want people of color.
I think the crucial missing point when we talk about economic disparity, time is the most valuable currency. And if you have a stock that's the American dream is the stock, and during all that time, all that asset, the American dream was appreciating, and you're not allowed to take out business loans, you're not allowed to read, you're not allowed to write, you had to first fight to become 3/5 of a citizen, then you got Jim Crow, and then you got everything else. It's you're now having to buy in at a price so high because the time is irreparable. You can't get that back. One black person today cannot, in one lifetime, achieve what generations of white families were able to do simply because they didn't have to compete with us to do it.
They didn't have to compete with black people, but they had to compete with other white people. If that was the case, all whites would be rich, and they're not. I know some very poor white people.
But I think if we just have an honest conversation about history and what we've gone through when we've been here, racism is definitely a big part of that. And there are a lot of successful black Americans, a lot of millionaires, a lot of, business owners, but they're exceptions for sure for a reason. And
There are exceptions in general, in all races. The millionaires and billionaires of the world aren't the majority. You had a black person in a single lifetime become president of the United States. So, come on, dude. No.
I thought I was going to be the only one staying. I was going to be like, oh, I'm about to be like Kanye West. But okay, there's a lot of things we can use as an excuse to hold us back.
Now check this out. I don't know if this guy chose his own name, but Prosper, it kind of says something about your mentality. Stop focusing on your race. Start focusing on moving forward. Start focusing on bettering yourself, on gaining knowledge, of learning new skills so you can move up that social economic ladder. You're the one that's holding yourself back. Sorry, I get fired up about this stuff.
There's a lot of bad things that happen to me. There's also a lot of good things that happen to me. Us African or African American, we need to look past racism and just focus on our own goal. What do we want to achieve? We need to stop using the word racism when we don't get something or when something don't go our way, and just keep trying,
So let me jump in real quick. No disrespect, but racism exists, and I have to acknowledge it. And I can't just ignore it, but what I can do is not buy into the system. If I want to do something, let me be the entrepreneur.
When I see black people talking about racism, all that stuff, I'm like, what is wrong with these people? You guys have food, you have EBT, all these things, and you're here shouting about somebody is racist too. Just leave that person and move on. I feel that way. Why are they always complaining? But when Black Lives Matters started happening, I sat down, I said, I need to actually know why these people are pained. And if we look at the history, what they've done to them, if you actually sit down, watch some documentaries, how they were maltreated,
Okay, let's ask all the black business owners whose businesses were destroyed. Some have had them for generations, and who destroyed them? Their own people, protesting racism. Was it racism or just a bunch of angry people who aren't happy with their lives for some reason and wanted to act out? Because if they really cared about their fellow man, in this case about their fellow black man, they wouldn't have gone around destroying black-owned businesses. When riots happen, we're the only ones that suffer. You think the politicians suffer when riots happen? No.
They need to be angry. However, they should still move forward.
I mean, we have police brutality back home too.
True.
We have if you go to Cameroon and then you see how that police officer treat us, and they're black just like us, you're not even gonna believe it. And in Cameroon we have this. Have you guys heard of the word tribalism? So
yeah, it happens in Nigeria.
Yeah, so we do get oppressed too. And
I agree.
So when I'm saying we need to look past that, I'm not saying forget what happened to you guys or me. At the end of the day, we cannot just sit and just grieve on the past. We have to be able to move on.
The American dream is only for white people.
I believe that the American dream is only for white people because it says equal. And when we talk about equal, there's no equality between the 1%, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Trumps, and the people who really run the media and things of that nature. So for black people growing up in America and living in America, we could become rich, we could become wealthy, but we are not on the equal playing field of white America. The system of white supremacy, which is in the law enforcement, which is in the judicial system, which is in the prison industrial association, also in the politics. We are not equal in any of those terms.
But it's not a matter of race. It's a matter of social economic class, because there's a lot of people, you have the Rothschilds and this and that. I mean, they're wealthy because of just generations of wealth. And we'll get into how they made their wealth maybe in a future video. But there's black billionaires, there's Mexican billionaires, there's billionaires in every race. So if you want an equal playing field, I mean, I think the best place for that is America. Obviously, you're going to run into hurdles, but those hurdles are more than likely going to be because of finances, because of education, but not because of race. People are always going to say, oh, it's because the system is racist. The system is what people make it. There's black police officers, there's black IRS agents, there's black prosecutors. If they wanted to, they can change things. So is it the system that's racist, or is it the people that are racist? Because most people who aren't racist will go into a job, and if they say, hey, why is this set up this way? That doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair. It seems a little racist. They'll change it.
When I was back there, when you were speaking, I started thinking could we ever actually, as black people, have the American dream here in America? And I don't know if we really can.
I don't know if you know this, but the American dream was to own your home, to own a car, and 2.5 kids. So the American dream isn't what you see on social media, yachts and jets and all that stuff. That may be your dream, and hey, more power to you, go for it. But the American dream was initially to be able to provide for your family, for your future, their future, have a home to call your own, and maybe have a nice car, which here more than any place else in the world, people have.
I'm trying to be careful with my words, but I do think there needs to be a degree of separatism. Like Black people, we really need to have our own.
In other words, segregation.
To fully take part in that dream.
This is their system.
Yeah.
Why would we dream of being equal in a system that wasn't designed for us?
Oh, jeez.
The American dream, at least the way that I define it, is, freedom of opportunity, freedom to choose what I want to do, freedom to acquire wealth the same way that anybody else can. Obviously, we're fighting the tides of time on that and our circumstances, but it's hard because it's hard to honor that, but then also want more for myself. And I think that as Black people, we're always teeter-tottering on that line of like, well, am I American? Like, do I get the American dream, or do we just tear all this down and build something new? White people are not the only people entitled to the American dream ever. Yeah. And I think that that's why we're all here, because our ancestors made it so that we can stand here and pursue that American dream.
There is some way that you can be successful. Talking about Trevor Noah, who took over the Daily Show, it wouldn't have been possible for him coming in as an African. He got his American dream. It made us, as well, other Africans, believe that it is possible.
The American dream writes his check. So he gets to have wealth or whatever it is that he's experiencing, but the American dream is the one who writes his check.
So Trevor Noah didn't earn it. He didn't work for it. The racist system said, okay, we'll give you some money.
But do you see how we would put it as he had his American dream, even though someone writes his check? But for him, or for some of us looking at it on the other side, that's his American dream, because his goal was to get there.
If he had stayed in South Africa, would he have had the same opportunity that he had here?
No.
So corporate is writing his check, but like us growing up, the reason we move here is because we don't have it better back home. For me, I'm the first person ever in my family in America. Everybody else is back home. Everybody is depending on me. All of them, my mom, she's dying to come here. She's willing to do anything just for her to be in America. So for me, when I look at those little things, I'm like, yeah, American dream is for everybody, we might not have the same opportunity as the white people, but there's still that little chance that a lot of us back home are willing to take just to get here.
I trust law enforcement.
I don't have a thing to say.
All right, can the disagreeer step forward?
I got married to a young lady who did 15 years in prison for a robbery she didn't commit. I myself was incarcerated for 6 months for a burglary that I couldn't have committed because I was in prison. So in 1987, I'm doing 19 months in prison. When I came home in 1988, I was given a burglary charge and I had to sit 6 months. And the judge did not kick it out because there's no way I could have done it. He kicked it out because they didn't serve me the warrant while I was in prison. So I don't trust them. They lie and they do things and it affects our people. So many people I know who have been wrongfully arrested, wrongfully convicted, and they actually lie on.
Now, I actually talked about, something like this in the video I did about Andrew and Tristan Tate. If you haven't watched that, you can check it out on my channel. But it's not about race. It's about a system with faults. I did 36 months in prison. So when a system, like I said, is driven by people's greed and ambition, like I said, prosecutors move up the ladder by locking people up. Prisons make money by getting people, prisons are for profit. A lot of them are for profit in the US. How can you make money off of people being incarcerated? When I was in prison, there was a bunch of white people there. There was all races there. But one thing they all had in common, or most of them had in common, was that they were in a low financial class and they were trying to figure out a way to move up to make money. So the system isn't racist. It's flawed. It's prejudiced against people who don't have money to defend themselves, because if you have money and you have good attorneys, you can probably, and people have, get away with murder.
As you guys know, I am from Richmond, Virginia. It was the capital of the Confederate. I have been brutally abused by the police there. Personally, I was at the river on the 4th of July. I don't smoke. I don't do none of that. The police come and arrest me because I look like a drug dealer. They arrested me.
What? The stereotype.
Then when I was in high school, my senior year, my father went to jail over a car accident. And
Now, racial stereotyping is real. We all do it. When you see someone for the first time, you make a split-second decision in your mind about who they are. Now, maybe once you get to know them, your mind changes a little bit. And that's why we should be conscious about how we present ourselves, the way we carry ourselves. Because that's fine. You can dress the way you want to dress. You can look the way you want to look. But just know that other people are going to make split-second, unconscious decisions about you because of the way you look. That's just human nature, and it's something that we have to accept, period.
I try to stay away from the police as much as possible.
I think we all try to stay away from the police as much as possible, right?
I think that just because you put a badge on doesn't magically bewitch you with like integrity and a desire to actually help the people around you. I think a lot of times police culture comes from police families. It comes from like legacy lines and this whole like kind of like culture about stuff. I mean, I don't trust them any more than I would trust any other person. They haven't earned that necessarily, especially not as an institution. In its purest form, I think it's necessary, but they have a lot of living up to that to do and to make up for if they're gonna be trusted.
I've seen law enforcement
See, we can all find things we agree on.
here on social media and seeing how they treat people of color, you know, from like hitting them. I mean, George Floyd, you know, rest in peace, but just seeing that.
Okay, now that social media, you're only going to see the worst if that's what you're looking for. You know, on social media, whatever app it is, search police brutality, police beating black man. Next thing you know, that's all your feed is filled with. But if you look, policeman doing good deed, white policeman helping black person, and you watch those videos, then that's all you're going to see. See what I'm saying? And that's going to frame, obviously, the way you view the world. So the thing that you're constantly thinking about, that's going to shape your mind. That's going to shape your life.
From my experience being here, I was scared, you know, like every time I'd see a cop pass by, I'm like, okay, I better make sure I'm driving okay, you know, because I don't want to be stopped, or make sure you're not in any harm's way, you know. But it's sad to feel that pressure every time you see a cop going by.
I feel it too. I think anyone feels that. When you see a cop car on the freeway, you're like, well, am I speeding? You know, are my tail lights working? Because you don't want a ticket. You don't want to have an interaction with police because it's usually not a good thing. I think people of all races, you know, get nervous when they see a police car. I mean, the times I've been pulled over, when you see those lights come on in that rear view mirror, your heart drops to your stomach, right? If you've been stopped by police, regardless of your race, you know that feeling.
And I immediately thought about the history of the police too, just tracing that back to slave patrols, which became our modern day police departments. And
oh, the fact that like if you have a felony, you can't vote, like that to me is like, talk about the loss of the American dream. Like you are a citizen of this country, you should always have a right to vote.
Yeah, I want to make a video about that because obviously I can't vote. And I definitely agree with this guy about that. And at times I think that maybe they don't want you to vote because you have a different view of the system. You've kind of seen behind the curtains. You've been a victim of it maybe. So it's obviously going to change the way you vote. I mean, I was a Republican, I would say, before I went to prison. I came out of prison a Democrat, and now I would consider myself an independent. So yeah, that and owning a firearm. I mean, I can't own a firearm. I wasn't convicted of a violent crime. I've never been violent. You know, the last fight I got in, I think I was 8 years old, but now I can't protect my family. Things definitely need to be reformed, but racism isn't something that we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on these other issues individually.
We are obsessed with race in America.
Well, I thought nobody was going to come forward. I was like, really?
I think that word obsessed is such an interesting word, and I think that the way that question is framed is almost as if it's like the onus is on us, like we're obsessed with race too much. Like, no, white people are obsessed with race in this country. They've made their laws based on it. They've cast us out because of it. They've like destroyed entire groups of people because of it. So, I mean, we're just living in the ripple effects of the stones that were cast in the pond of history. So we're just reacting to it. So we would rather just be human beings and American citizens and, you know, people that are pursuing an American dream. We'd rather not have to think about race, but that, we did not draw first blood on that.
what else do you expect?
Yeah, like, I
given the
mean,
history?
I'm not
Like,
obsessed.
Yeah.
For me, being in America give me an opportunity to like meet and like discover so many different culture that I would never see if I was in my country. I would just like maybe hear about it on the news. Yes, I agree. I think they are very obsessed with race. Even when you do like an easy application, like it doesn't matter what application you do, they want to know your race. They want to know, you know, why they don't have a category for Africans? You know?
That's why I'm checking out every time.
They want to know everything.
Yeah, they ask that because they might give you a job because of your race. We shouldn't even have that question really in on applications, right? Why do you need to know a person's race? So I would agree with that, but you know what? Mainly it's the side screaming about racism that's obsessed with racism, right? Because if you're not obsessed with something, you're not going to be talking about it.
That pissed me off the most is that when they see you and they be like, oh, you have an accent. Where are you from? Like, who cares where I'm from? Just sell me this thing and let me keep going.
Oh, geez. Now that's just curiosity. That's not racism. And I think a lot of times when we have baggage or traumas, we react in an aggressive manner when people ask us certain questions, but that's more of a her problem than a social problem, I think.
I don't believe that there's an obsession about race in America. I believe that race is a distraction to hide the power, the wealth, and the access to it. So a lot of times there's something put on the table like a rock being thrown and I hold my hand, and that's the racism between black and whites, between blacks and Hispanic, and other cultures have come here. We'll talk about race just so that we don't have access to the power and the wealth, and I think it's done on purpose.
Some of the question prompts that I see differently, and then when I hear somebody say it, I'm like, that actually makes sense coming from their perspective. So it's been really beautiful having this conversation with you guys. You guys are very knowledgeable, and I've learned a whole lot from each and every one of you today.
Going into this with like the title of the series, like African versus African American, I think that like people were gonna come in thinking that we were gonna be like guns blazing, but this is such a beautiful display of unity. I love it. It like gave me so much life today.
Okay, so what do you guys think? Is systemic racism really a problem? Is it holding you back in life? Has it held you back in life? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't seen the Jubilee channel, I do recommend it. Like I said, it's linked down below. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you on the next one.